Good evening, folks. This is The Weird Part, and I am your host, Vincent Treewell. Tonight, I have a very special guest. Please join me in welcoming Karma Wilde. Karma, would you like to give our audience a brief introduction?
Okay, my name is Karma Wilde. Some of you will know me from Facebook as the Paranormal Tourist. I have, I think it's 10 or 11 groups that I manage. And in particularly, I am managing a group called P4, which stands for Paranormal for the Missing and Lost.
Yes, and that is the group where I first came in contact with you. It's kind of, to me at least, a pretty unique organization, which really is at the crossroads of paranormal psi phenomenon and unsolved crimes. Um, would you tell us a little bit about that group and how you started it and why?
Okay, I started the group because I did a video a while back introducing the names and dates of 23 missing females in the PD region, which is the Midlands to the coast of South Carolina. And included in this group of missing females was one that happened to be missing from a town right over from me, another small town. And it got so much attention, I think it was over 1,000 views, that I decided I had an epiphany, let me say that this is exactly what I should be doing. I have a natural, instinctive curiosity. I have a knack for research and a deep love and affiliation with the paranormal. So it occurred to me that I should probably see if other people were interested in something like this, and they were. And as soon as the group came into development, I quickly spun it off into divisions. So we have a research division, we have a spiritual guidance division, we have a psychic division, I have a division of searchers and referential searchers, and there is just a division of people that just want to help. And
Yeah.
from that, I narrowed it down to just one case for us to work on, and that was the case I'm working on now.
Yes, which we're going to get to quite soon. Just to get a little background, are you originally from South Carolina?
No, I'm a military brat, so I like to say I'm from everywhere and nowhere, but I have been here for 21 years. Wait, no. Yeah, 21 years.
Okay.
So I'm a transplant that took root.
Yes, indeed. Um, how did you originally get interested in the paranormal?
Oh boy. Okay, so um, 6 years ago, I bought a house, a great big 3-story gorgeous home in a demilitarized neighborhood. Literally all the houses around me, except for one up the street, were abandoned and just beat. And this one was a rental property. I initially started out renting it. The owner asked me, he said, I have a deal you can't refuse. Never take those deals.
That sounds, yes, a little off-putting.
So, and it really was a great deal. So I bought the house from him, and he was the bank. I was doing a lease purchase, and things are going along pretty good. It made me a bit nervous to live in such a large home by myself. And I would look out the window and think, if I scream, nobody's going to hear me. So I'm really on my own here. And after a period of time, the house that I purchased, I began to notice was off. It was just ever so slightly off. And it got really bad, to the point where I I noticed things that you should never notice in your house. I could never get enough light in that house, to the point where I had an enormous collection of lamps. And in addition to that, because I could never get the house lit up, I actually purchased 2 cast iron lawn lamps that had 4 globes on each one of them, and I would use those too. And it still felt like the house was dark.
That is really
I
interesting.
Oh, it was. This happened very subtly over the course of 3 years. It wasn't until, okay, so let me not tell you that. In all together, there are 5 bodies attached to the house in the time that I had lived there. People that would stay overnight would die 2 weeks later.
Wow.
And it wasn't a
Okay.
pattern that I. It was over the course of 3 years. But toward the end, I began to notice that things were appearing, things were disappearing. I actually was in the shower, and keep in mind, I lived alone, and my son, who was my son-in-law, and my ex-boyfriend would spend the night on a fairly regular basis. They each had their own rooms that they would sleep in because they worked for me. I'm a contractor. And I noticed personality changes in them, and I didn't see it myself. I just thought they were getting weird. But I was taking a shower, and I reached for a razor, and as I held that razor, I looked at it, and it was not my razor. I had never seen that thing in my life. And my ex-boyfriend didn't shave, and I asked my son, and he said it was not his. So at this point, I began to honestly and earnestly believe that I had schizophrenia, and the ghost in my house was me.
Well, that's a conclusion people might jump to.
I was convinced of it, but then I started to wake up with marks on my body, unexplainable marks, and I began documenting. And I had a dog that went absolutely insane. He would stay under my dresser and never come out, or he would be stuck to me like glue. And when he attacked me one evening, I eventually had to give him away. And
wow.
I'm still not connecting the dots here. So my paranoia increased exponentially. I was always feeling watched. I could not sit in the chair in the living room and watch TV and not look over my shoulder many, many times. And the TVs would turn off, and that's okay, things happen, but they were turning on by themselves too.
Wow,
so,
that's a disturbing thing. That especially when you're living alone or nearly alone.
Yeah, no, I lived alone. I lived absolutely alone. There were incidents. Well, one incident where I was sitting up in my bedroom watching TV in my chair, and I felt like I'd gotten stung. So I pulled my shirt over and looked down, and I had 3 very, very slight hairline scratches that were bleeding. And I was like, okay, this stuff is weird. This is too weird. So,
yeah, that's pretty heavy.
Yeah, family members did not want to come over. Friends did not want to come over. Nobody wanted to come over except for the guys. And so I eventually invited 3 different investigators to come through my house, or 2 different investigators. One did it twice. The first investigators, they were a bowl of Fruit Loops. I mean, they're nice people, but
no,
seriously, they were telling me that their house was haunted, but it was a little girl, and I kept saying, that's not a little girl. And so I invited a different team to come through, and they did. And I work out of town a lot, and set up an appointment with this group. And the lead investigator, Lori Fowler, she was like, "Are you going to be here?" And I told her, "No, I had to work. I'll be out of town, but I always keep a lockbox because I'm notorious for losing my keys." So I said, "This is the lockbox code. The lockbox code. Help yourself. Go on in." She's like, "You're not worried we'll steal anything?" And I'm like, "Look, if you need it, then take it. That's all I'm going to say." So she went. They did, and I was very glad they did, because the minute she walked in, she was attacked at the front door. She was growled at
Wow.
and pushed, and she was sickened. She was overwhelmingly sickened, where she almost passed out.
So you have so that was some confirmation from another person being physically attacked in that house.
Yes, yes.
That probably
Yeah.
kind of made you see that this isn't a problem going on in my head. This is really something is in this house.
Right. And I knew there was at that point. I became so paranoid that I was convinced that things were hiding in the cabinets. So I removed all the cabinet doors. And to this day, I still don't use cabinets. Can't. So they investigated. They found a goodish amount of evidence. She happened by accident to catch a picture of a black entity squatting on my mantle of my fireplace in the formal living room. And what was interesting, other than the fact that she caught that picture, was that behind it, I've always been a knickknack person. In lots of pictures, I don't like blank walls. So in that picture, the entity squatting on the mantle, everything was gone from the mantle and the wall behind it. And that in itself was confirmation, as well as very intriguing. But my sister died 2 weeks right after I moved into that house. And she had never been there, but we had spoken on the phone plenty of times because I'd been renting it previously. But once I purchased it, she died 2 weeks after that. And then the guy who worked next door as their lawn maintenance fellow, I asked him to do some hauling because I cut down some trees in the front yard. He hauled them off, and I came home from work one evening. The whole street was completely filled, as well as my driveway, with emergency vehicles. This man had died in the driveway next door, face down, butt up.
Wow.
And they left him like that. So I was mortified by that. He's a very nice man. And then further into the next year, I believe, my ex-boyfriend's mother, who was a very, very good friend of mine, I would call her one of my best friends. She spent one and only night in that house. 2 weeks later, she dropped dead.
Wow.
And then my son stayed with me, and then 2 weeks after that, he blew his brains out.
Oh my God, I'm sorry. That's a lot of tragedy.
2 weeks. 2 weeks after I abandoned that house, because the last time, well, actually toward the end of it, I knew that there was something terrible in that house. I was feeling menaced. I knew that my personality has changed. I knew that the guys' personalities had changed. We were all carrying weapons. I was sleeping with a 4-foot sword in bed with me. My ex-boyfriend was sleeping with a butcher knife, and my son was sleeping with a gun. We were all terrified. We didn't know of what, and all of our personalities had changed. We were black. Seriously, every one of us were oppressed.
Wow.
And after my son had committed suicide months later, there was a period of probably about 30 days or so where I don't remember, honest to God, do not remember doing anything except for wandering around the house in my pajamas. I don't think I ever took a shower that whole month. I don't remember eating. I don't remember sleeping. I just wanted the house dark, and I was just wandering around it. And at one point, I audibly heard a voice, not in my head, but it said, "Why are you still alive? Your son is dead, and he was so much better than you. You should kill yourself."
Wow, that's about as evil as it gets.
It kept saying this to me, and I was like, you know what? You're right. Why am I here? And he was so much better than me. And I was ready to do it, but then I thought, whoa, that's not right. I'm not suicidal. And I knew I needed to get out of the house. I knew that what was in there wanted me too. So I was actually sleeping in my van on the driveway for the last month or month and a half that I owned that house because I could not stand to be in there. I was terrified. The last time that I went in there where I was sleeping in the house, it was late at night and I was putting my key in the door, just getting home from work. And from behind me, somebody yelled, "Boo!" And I jumped and I wheeled around and there was nobody there. And that was it for me.
Wow.
I called the owner and I told him, "You have to take your house back. I can't stay here anymore. It's going to kill me. It's literally trying to get me to commit suicide, and I'm not suicidal." And so he agreed, and we signed the paperwork back into his name. And 2 weeks after that, he got a fatal diagnosis.
Wow.
Yeah, so the only survivors of that house were my ex-boyfriend and myself. But it was not until I was packing up that home that I realized that my ex-boyfriend and my son had been practicing black magic. That those two idiots had gone into an abandoned graveyard and did a black magic ceremony to inhale a demon. And they brought it into the house.
Do you think that that was the starting point of all of this?
This my interest in these ladies was when I owned that house, but no.
I meant of the activity in the house. Like they brought that entity in?
Oh, they brought it in. That's a fact. It's a stone cold fact. They brought it in. They invited it. The ceremony they performed was to allow themselves to be possessed.
Wow.
And wow. That had been a decade prior to me buying this house.
Okay. So this
it's been going on for a long time. I just did not understand. I thought I knew about the paranormal. I thought I knew everything because I'd watched all the movies. I'd read a lot of books. I'm here to tell you, you don't know a darn thing until it's in your face and it's happening. And
that's a whole nother level there. Yes.
Right. By the time that happens, you're in big trouble. You just don't know it. So I abandoned that house. I escaped with my life. I lived in my van for the next 8 months. I couldn't live in a house. I still don't trust them. The house I live in now, I've slept in the living room for 3 years. The bedrooms are storage and an office. I will never be able to sleep behind a closed door again in a bedroom as long as I live.
I don't blame you. I mean, that sounds really, really incredible. Wow.
All I can say is if you look at that picture, you would be like, holy crap. Yeah, it was, people don't realize that when you deal with the paranormal, there is things that can happen that give you PTSD. You don't walk away from this unscathed. You are marked for life by what you experience. And I had been searching for a way to get past the trauma of what had happened and all the deaths and, losing my home, my dream, everything. I mean, I literally moved from a 3-story house into a van. And it was not anything it's not because I didn't have money. It's not because I didn't pay my bills. It was none of that. It was out of sheer survival. And so I was trying to find a way to get myself through this because there is no counseling for this. And you're really on your own when you have something like this happen, and you're on your own to figure out how to get through it. So I became interested in looking for people that were mysteries, literally mysteries, and have disappeared, never to be found again.
And yes. And
my mind went right to this road where I'm at now.
I see. And you've uncovered a lot of material in the last, period of time. There's one particular case that you've been working to bring attention to. Do you
Yes.
want to tell us about that?
Yes, I'm glad to. Her name is Brooke Lee Henson. She went missing from Travelers Rest, South Carolina in 1999. Um, the background is that she had attended a party at a place we call Bald Rock, which is literally a side of a mountain that just has no growth on it in that part, so it's exposed rock. And it's a party place. A lot of people go there, especially the kids. And she had come home. It was the 3rd of July. She'd come home and she'd hosted a party at her parents' house, who were out of town in North Carolina, and they were attending a concert with her big brother and her aunt and maybe her uncle. That's never been too clear for me on that one. And her parents arrived home sometime in the early morning hours. It goes anywhere from 1 to 2:30 that they arrived home. And just as they arrived home, the last party goers, the attendees, were leaving. And she had been quarreling, not physically fighting, quarreling with her boyfriend. And it was because he was trying to pick up another girl at the party. So, little Casanova.
Yes, yes. And teenage antics, you might say.
When you're young, you think you can do that stuff, and it's okay. So she was pretty hot on the collar about it, and he was party boy, so he went into her room. He was staying the night, and apparently that was not the first time they'd been seeing each other for a while on a allegedly casual basis. But I think that she really, really loved this boy. And her parents came home. Herself and her boyfriend went into her room where they were talking. Brooke's mother went to sleep on the couch. Her father and her brother went to their rooms. And Brooke had gotten into another quarrel with her boyfriend. And apparently at this point he's passing out. So she left him a note that said, I quote, "I've gone walking. Follow me if you care." And she stepped into the living room, spoke with her mother for a moment, told her, she said, "Are you okay?" And, I'm paraphrasing. Brooke said something to the effect of, "Yeah, I'm just screwing with him. You'll see if he cares." And she allegedly said, "I'm going to the store to get a pack of cigarettes." Let me correct that. For all the people who have made videos and podcasts about this event, she did not leave the house to go to the store to get a pack of cigarettes in Travelers Rest in 1999 at that time in the morning, because nothing was open past midnight. So
yes, that would have been, there would have been no place you could walk to.
No, the only two places she could have potentially gone were the bar down the road, and she was 20, so she couldn't have gotten in. They may have let her in anyways. It's a small town. They had cigarette vending machines. But I have yet to be able to decipher whether that bar was open at that time or not. Some people put the time at 2:30 a.m. and definitely it would not have been open. And the only other place was 1.3 miles away, crossing 4 lanes of traffic. Keep in mind, this little girl didn't drive. She didn't have a car. So she would have had crossed 4 lanes of traffic at night on a highway to walk further down the road to get to a motel that could have had a vending machine. So when she stepped off the porch, she stepped into the void. She was never seen or heard from again, ever.
That's an incredible disappearance. And has there been anything concrete, anything physical found in the time since?
No, let me tell you that first of all, the initial missing persons report was taken the evening of the 4th. When it was finally decided Brooke didn't just, leave to go hang at a friend's house. She was gone. So they filed the initial police report. And That report was not acted upon until 3 weeks after it was initially taken. In the interim, the police officer that took the report was caught in Brooke's parents' house, no warrant, no probable cause, searching her residence. So basically, no, not basically, actually, he was performing a B&E with a badge. So he was eventually reprimanded for that action, but nothing more than that happened.
And I am just asking here because it seems like the obvious question. This young woman goes missing, and there isn't a huge, like, search and rescue
No.
effort. I mean, it seems like the type of disappearance that would raise everybody's red flags and, cause a lot of wheels to start turning in local law enforcement. Go ahead.
No, the family was considered a party family, so they were on the lower end of the spectrum. First of all, second of all, the police had developed tunnel vision for the boyfriend. The mother swore that he was at the house all night, and she woke him up in the morning realizing that Brooke had not come home, woke him up to ask him what this note was that she found on the dresser, and he said he did not know. He had never seen it before, and he had been asleep all night. She woke him up, and this poor kid was railroaded. He was hauled in on multiple occasions, and he lawyered up every time. And I give him kudos for that, because right now he would be sitting in prison for something he didn't do. They said they thought he was guilty because he wanted a lawyer and he didn't want to discuss it. Well, they were going to railroad him.
Yes.
This is just a young kid. Keep in mind, this guy was young too. So for him to sneak past Brooke's mother, who may very well have been passed out, they were partiers, step out front, kill his girlfriend, get rid of her body in the July heat where nobody would notice the stench, without also having a vehicle. This guy didn't have a vehicle over there. And come sneak back into the house and go into her bedroom and go to sleep. That's no. This guy, he would have panicked. He would not have gone back in the house.
That seems extremely unlikely that someone of that sophistication could pull that off. Yes.
Right. I say you would have to have ice water running through your veins to pull that off. You have to be pure sociopath.
And he would leave physical evidence, it would seem,
Sure. But he was, in their mind, the only logical suspect. And he did have a nice little arrest record. This guy was no sweetheart. He was a pure South Carolina party boy. But the fact of the matter is that he didn't care enough about this girl to kill her. And that's, in my opinion, the honest to God truth, because not a week later, he was arrested for having sex with a minor. So I don't know if it was the girl from the party or what, but he's a pretty boy. And he had no problem in the ladies department. So I cannot see him caring enough to kill her.
That's it. They don't really explain a motive at all.
Exactly. But I can't confirm it at this point because I have been asked not to interview people, which I'm going to absolutely blow past that order. And I will begin interviewing because I'm not getting the information I need. So I've had to build this case literally from ground zero. I literally started this case by walking what I call the victim walk. I went to her house. I never stepped foot on the property. I stayed out front on the public road and I walked the neighborhood. In my mind, I'm the victim. I'm drunk. I'm high. I'm stumbling around, just trying to cool off. and it's dark out. It's a small town. Nobody should have been up. Nobody should have been out, yet somebody was.
You're kind of somewhat like psychological profiling, putting yourself in the victim's shoes.
Right, but I'm also trying to look at myself, the victim, from the perpetrator's eyes as well. So
Yes.
I'm not only the victim, but I'm also the perpetrator. I'm watching me. And I'm thinking what an easy target I am. So it's kind of it's a weird thing that I can do, to step in both sides of the scenario at the same time. But it's something I can do, and I let it play out the way it just naturally in my mind the scenario plays out. So not having the benefit of ever seeing any of the police reports after requesting it multiple times, I've had to build my case from zero. So I began with the boyfriend, and I began doing background searches on everybody, the boyfriend's family, known associates, blah, blah, blah. And the plot thickened. It thickened a lot.
Yes.
And so I've discovered that there was a network of drug manufacturers and dealers and guns, assaults. Everybody I literally researched. Anybody who had anybody to do with anybody got researched, and they all have criminal histories. And almost every single one of them has arrests for possession, distribution, sales, manufacturing, and it just goes on from there. There are several that have hefty assault raps, including assaulting police officers, assaulting wives. One has a criminal history for sexual contact or conduct with a child under 10 years old.
Oh, man.
Oh, these people, they really, I'm telling you, it just makes me look at these towns in a whole new perspective. And then you've got, I knew that my son had joined, and he lived where I'm living now, not in the house, but right around the corner. And I knew that he had joined a satanic cult. So you've got connotations of drugs, alcohol, weapons, receiving stolen goods, burglaries, selling stolen cars, having possession of stolen this and stolen that. It just goes on, and then you throw in the occult measure to it. So I can literally tie the people who I believe were responsible for Brooke's disappearance in with the alleged cult that my son had joined, which ultimately caused him to commit suicide because he was ducking and dodging the person who raped the child and was terrorizing him.
Wow.
So in the course of doing all of these investigations, I have been probably more active than I should be in pursuing these persons of interest, which, by the way, none of them are the boyfriend. The boyfriend died of a drug overdose in 2019, which allegedly was not necessarily an overdose, but possibly he was given a heavy dose of fentanyl.
Yes, sometimes called a hot shot, you might say, that an intentional...
It was designed to kill him.
Overdosing somebody else, yes.
Yeah. So now you have the alleged perpetrator, who is also a